Hello everyone, this is the third video and this will be the last video relating to Aadhaar. Okay, in the first one we discussed the Aadhaar Act along with its features and some issues. The second one was dealing with the Aadhaar case, which was a landmark case. Okay, we discussed those topics in detail. And this lecture will be discussing the amendment to the Aadhaar Act, which was proposed in January 2019. Okay, so here we'll deal with what was the need for those amendments, what amendments were made, at least the important ones, and then we'll also discuss some questions related to Aadhaar. There were three needs to amend the Aadhaar Act. The first one was due to Supreme Court's decision to strike down certain sections of this Act, as well as recommendation for some other section. For example, the court struck down part of section 57. It gave some suggestions in section 33, section 47. The next one relates to B.N. Sri Krishna Committee's recommendation. This committee was constituted in 2017 for the purpose of analyzing the key challenges to data protection in India, as well as some measures to deal with this. Okay, so since Aadhaar also takes our personal data, so definitely data protection applies to Aadhaar as well, and hence government decided to bring some amendment based on the recommendation of B.N. Sri Krishna Committee. Third, there were some changes necessary in the Telegraph and PMLA Act such that voluntary use of Aadhaar is enabled in these in availing these services. Okay, so what happened was, since section 57, part of it was declared unconstitutional. The part which was declared unconstitutional dealt with sharing of Aadhaar related data with private individual or corporate body under any contractual agreement. Now, Supreme Court said that this part is unconstitutional as sharing of data with private entities might lead to commercial exploitation of data, as well as sharing of data on the basis of a contractual agreement violates the threefold proportionality test, where the first test says that there must be a law for this action. Okay, and for that reason the government brought certain amendments in Telegraph and PMLA Act. Provisions based on Supreme Court's recommendation. So here we'll deal with the amendments that were based on Supreme Court's recommendation. So first of all, it proposed deletion of section 57 because part of it was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and the part that was left could already be dealt with when you're passing another law. You add a criteria that Aadhaar can be made mandatory for or voluntary for such law, and the court will check the constitutionality of that law alone. Okay, so this section lost its relevance and hence it was decided to remove it altogether. The next amendment deals with section 33, which deals with disclosure of data on some special basis. Okay, so section 33 subclause 1 dealt with disclosure of data by order of a court equal to or higher than that of district judge. Okay, so that was changed from district judge to high court judge. So now only on order of a judge equal to or above high court judge can Aadhaar data be disclosed. Section 33 subclause 2 dealt with disclosure of data in the interest of national security. Okay, it allowed an officer not below the rank of joint secretary to order disclosure of such data. Now this has been changed to officer not below the rank of secretary. Okay, the next amendment deals with enrollment of children in Aadhaar. Supreme Court recommended that consent of parent is necessary to enroll children in Aadhaar. Okay, so a law was brought to enable this. Further, the court also said that such children must be given an option to withdraw from Aadhaar once they reach the age of 18. So the government brought in recommended amendments and it has allowed children who reach the age of 18 to withdraw from Aadhaar provided that they do it within a period of 6 months. And finally, the bill amends Section 47. Section 47 gave sole power to UIDAI to approach court in violation of any provisions of the Act. The court recommended that individual whose personal data has been violated or whose Aadhaar has been impersonated should also be given the option to approach the court, and hence this amendment enables an individual to register complaint in cases related to disclosure of their Aadhaar identity, impersonation, etc. Next, we deal with amendments related to data protection. Okay, so first of all, the Act was amended, and it was amended to bring forth that UIDAI will determine that if an Aadhaar entity in the Aadhaar ecosystem provides or is compliant with the standard of privacy and security specified by the authority, that is UIDAI. Okay, so if an entity in Aadhaar ecosystem does not offer the level of security and data protection that is required, mandated by UIDAI, such entity cannot perform Aadhaar authentication. The second provision relates to empowering UIDAI to initiate complaint as well as penalize any entity in Aadhaar ecosystem. Okay, so for this, the Act amended the Aadhaar Act to give UIDAI power to appoint adjudicating officers who will preside over such complaint and penalize the entity in Aadhaar ecosystem. Okay, and if you want to appeal against the decision of UIDAI, you can go to the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, that is TDSAT. Okay, and who will you go to if you have to appeal against the decision of TDSAT? Supreme Court. Okay. Finally, Aadhaar Act had a chapter that dealt with criminal penalties under Aadhaar. Okay, so jail term was under criminal penalties, but as per recommendation of B.N. Sri Krishna Committee, a new chapter was included titled by Civil Penalties. Okay, it proposes penalty of up to 1 crore on entities that violate the provision of this Aadhaar Act, and if they don't correct themselves within the stipulated time as given by the authority, they will be charged an additional fine of up to 10 lakhs per day. Okay, so it's a hefty amount of fine. B.N. Sri Krishna Committee did recommend a hefty amount of fine, and government has gone along with it. Some miscellaneous provisions related to Aadhaar Act amendment. Okay, so like I said, the government had to amend Telegraph Act and PMLA Act because to allow such Aadhaar authentication by law, otherwise it would have been unconstitutional. Okay, so these two acts have been amended to include Aadhaar authentication as an acceptable KYC document, but it must be voluntary. Okay, so someone cannot force you under these two acts to go for only Aadhaar authentication. Okay, and to enable this, government brought another provision that allows use of your 12-digit Aadhaar number or an alternate virtual identity to conceal the actual Aadhaar number of an individual. So here you can, government can use QR code, or if you go to Aadhaar website, you can see recently there's a masked Aadhaar. Okay, so you can download your full Aadhaar or a masked Aadhaar. In masked Aadhaar, only last 4 digits of your Aadhaar number are visible. Okay, so that allows a protection to your Aadhaar number as well. Fine. It also allows offline verification. Now, procedure for offline verification has not been laid down by regulation. Okay, the Act says that it will be laid down by the regulation. However, it does specify that if someone is going for offline verification, Aadhaar authentication cannot be done for that, and some suitable method will be recommended by the regulations. Okay, further, it also says that if an entity is requesting authentication it must inform the Aadhaar number holder of alternate means of identification. That means if you're going for, if you're going to open a bank account or if you're going to take a SIM card. Now Aadhaar, you can use your Aadhaar for that purpose, but if you don't want to, you have the choice not to. Fine. And it is the responsibility of these entities, that is your mobile service provider or your bank, to inform you that you have alternate means of identification available to you. And finally, the bill creates a Unique Identification Authority of India fund, that is UIDAI fund. Now earlier all the proceeds of Aadhaar, that is fees, grants, went to consolidated fund. However, this has been amended to create a UIDAI fund. Now all the money that comes to UIDAI fund will be used for administrative expense of Aadhaar, such as paying salary or maintaining databases, etc. Okay, so these were the major amendments related to the Aadhaar Act. Now these amendments were passed by Lok Sabha, however they could not be passed by the Rajya Sabha because it was adjourned sine die. So government promulgated them as ordinance. Okay, now here are some important questions related to Aadhaar. These are questions related to all the 3 videos that I have uploaded. So the first one is pretty direct. Discuss the salient features of Aadhaar Act and highlight the issues related to it. So salient features have been, like, these issues have been discussed in quite detail. You don't even have to write that much. Like, just remember 5 issues and 5 features. That should be enough. The next question deals with the significance of proportionality test. So this is important. Okay, do try to remember what proportionality test is, understand how it works. Okay, so it's a 3-fold test. 1, the action must be sanctioned by law. 2, the action must be necessary. 3, the extent of infringement of right must be proportional to the benefits that the right achieves. Okay, so discuss that and then discuss how it was applied on Aadhaar Act. Okay, now the next one deals with what is a money bill. So of course this is important because Aadhaar was passed as a money bill, so it might come. Do read Article 110 of Indian Constitution. Okay, read about how Rajya Sabha has less power in passage of a money bill than ordinary bills, and then talk about if Aadhaar Act was a money bill or not. And since it said discuss in the light of recent Supreme Court judgment, well, then quote some parts of judgment I've already discussed in the previous lecture that deals with Aadhaar case. Okay, so Supreme Court gives some valid argument. It talks about previous cases, Article 1110 and Article 122 of Indian Constitution as well. So include all those, and then it would be better if your conclusion is in line with the Supreme Court judgment, because they are the final interpreter of our constitution. Next question is pretty direct again. Discuss the need of amending Aadhaar. As I discussed, there were 3 needs, and then enumerate some of the amendments. So I have discussed like 10 amendments. That should be enough. And the final question is what are the impact of Apex Court verdict on Aadhaar? Okay, discuss in context of use of Aadhaar to open bank account, SIM card. So discuss some other impacts as well, not just related to these. So these would be, like I said, voluntary provision, removal of like private entity should not be allowed, contractual agreement part was removed, government had to bring amendment, etc. And then also discuss that Supreme Court said that the decision of Speaker to certify a bill as money bill is subject to judicial review. Discuss about the proportionality test, discuss about the reasonable restrictions imposed on fundamental rights. Next lecture will be on some constitutional issue, or it can also be on Israel-Palestine issue. I'll be starting with that soon. Thank you.